Welcome to This Week in Rauchbier, the world's most important, long-running, and awarded show dedicated to smoked beer. I'm John Hall. Bill and Hagen are in Bamberg without Wi-Fi, so it's just me this week. Before we begin, a reminder that there's an official This Week in Rauchbier hat available on allaboutbeer.com/merch. Get your hands on this exclusive hat while limited supplies last. And make sure you're staying on top of all of the news and releases from Rauchbier Land by visiting us on Facebook at This Week in Rauchbier and on X, Threads, and Instagram at TW Rauchbier. On this week's Rauchbier Spotlight, I'm excited to welcome Caleb Michalke. He's the owner, maltster, farmer, and more at Sugar Creek Malt Company in Indiana. As craft malting continues to rise in popularity and farmers are reviving tradition, brewers are looking for ways to have their beers stand out on the marketplace. While Rauchbiers are the obvious choice, some brewers want to go beyond smoke. Why? I can't understand it. Michalke has taken to creating specialty malt that appeals to today's modern brewer and distiller. His smoke malt appeals to the rarefied breed who wants Rauchbiers of distinction. He'll explain. And he joined me from the farm. Caleb, welcome to the show. It's an honor for you to be here. What was the first Rauchbier that reached down deep into your soul and touched you in a meaningful way?
Man, that's a hard question. Let me think about that. Probably I'm trying to think some of the first ones that we made, and that of the beers that of the smoked malt that we made and the beer that was made with that. Because obviously, that having, smoked beer from other places is great and they're awesome, but being able to taste that flavor that you smelled while you were smoking that malt and then actually having the beer made with that coming through is a pretty special moment. So I'm trying to think some of the first things that we did. So we started smoking back in 2016, I think. And we did some really fun stuff back then with, I think the first one actually that we did was for Three Floyds and 18th Street. And we did a lavender smoked, or no, it was a lilac. We did lilac wood, but they labeled it as lavender smoked, even though it was actually lilac wood. Somebody got confused in the beer labeling department and put it as lavender, but it was actually lilac wood. And we did a lilac smoked beer with them, which was pretty neat. We did a lot of maple back then, and so the maple smoked beers, they were really awesome. And then we actually started doing, this is all about Rauch beer, but we also did a lot of smoked malt for whiskey. And I've got a distillery, Old 55 Kinsman distillery here in Indiana, that they do a single malt whiskey with, it's a blend of peat, maple, and lavender smoked malts, and that whiskey is just beautiful. So yeah, it's having smoked malt and being in that smoke and smelling that flavor and then seeing it come through in beer and whiskey is a pretty special moment.
Let's go back to 2016 when you first decided to start smoking malt. It's my understanding, and again, being far away from farms, but it's my understanding that it is not easy to run a farm in America these days. And you hear all the reports about how difficult it can be. Why add a loss? Why add a losing part of a business to something that is already hard to do?
That's why we started the malt house. Why when I came
tried
back
to be
the farm,
serious with that one, but yeah.
When I came back to the farm, I realized that, like you said, we're a small farm. So, a lot of the very successful farms around us have, over 5,000 acres. They're farming over 5,000 acres. Some of them are farming, 15. There are some farms around here, not around here, that have 20 to 30,000 acres. So, we farm about 1,000 acres. So it's not a huge farm, and we don't make a ton of money doing that because, by the time you pay for the combine equipment and the tractors and everything else, it's not at our size anymore. It used to be you could make money doing that, but now it's farm ground around here has doubled in the last couple of years because industries are coming in and buying it and turning it into commercial ground, and so we're losing farm ground, and everything has just gotten really, really difficult for the small family farm here. So yeah, I came back to the farm and told my dad, "Hey, I want to come back to the farm." I left for a while. I had no intention of going back to the family farm in high
Yeah.
school, college, anything like that. And I left and I started missing that atmosphere, that lifestyle, I guess, and came back to the farm and said, "Hey, Dad, I want to come back to the farm, but I realized that we have to have some type of value added product that we're making with the farm so that we're not relying on two family incomes, my parents and then my wife and I and my kids off just solely off of the farm." So yeah, we came back to the farm in 2014 and started helping out and started building the malt house. And then in 2015 we started malting, and it's been an uphill struggle the whole time because in Indiana nobody was even growing barley um, for malting purposes. So we had to start from the ground up and learning what varieties would even grow here, number one, and then it, out of those varieties, which one of them would actually make good malt and taste good and all that.
Yeah.
So that struggle the first few years was very real, and and we're still struggling. I mean, we're dealing with growing pains, but more than agricultural side, but it was a real struggle the first, I would say, 5 to 6 years to really get everything nailed down to make quality malt year after year. And we finally have found some good varieties, and then we've added all these. We added the roaster, we added the cold smoker, we added the Swinghus to do the old world smoked malts, we added our Edelweiss for the old lager malts. So having having the diversity both with the farming side and with the malt side has really helped weather storms, I guess, for us. So I mean, yeah, when you say adding that to an already very difficult business, we're really just diversifying so that we have options. If something starts not selling as much, or if something goes on wrong on the farm with the corn side, we still have barley.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting to me, and I mean this sincerely now, is since you've started doing this and being able to do lavender and lilac and maple and having this suite of options um for brewers. I was going to say I'm not blowing smoke, but like it strikes me that there has been a slight renewed interest among certain brewers that use you about creating Rauchbiers. Is that fair?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I am the reason behind that, but I want to try to at least give brewers and distillers options that they didn't have in the past. So, being able to have a persimmon smoked malt, or we've done cardamom, we've done all kinds of things. Like, brewers couldn't have that access. Were they not wanting to do that in the past? I don't think they weren't wanting to do that, they just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And same thing with like our corn malts. You couldn't get corn malt. So I don't think that I necessarily rekindled this fascination with smoked malts or corn whisk or corn lagers, or old world lagers. But I do think that at least allowing brewers and distillers to have the options to use those things has uh, started not started but helped that change, I guess, and the availability of those beers and whiskeys.
Yeah. What are some of the smoked malts that you've made, using, various sources to create the smoke? Like what are a few that really stand out in your mind as offering up lovely aromas, lovely flavors?
So I've done a lot of different things with it. Some of them have been great, some of them have been not so great. I've already mentioned the lavender. That's really one of my favorites that we do. You think lavender and you think like kind of soapy lavender, like a
Mm-hmm.
lavender soap and something really terrible. But if you've ever used lavender in the culinary world, it actually has this. If you use the stalks, it actually has this more like cinnamon nutmeg, almost like oatmeal cookie kind of flavor. And that, as the malt ages, as that smoke ages in the malt, I usually don't sell the lavender malt until it's aged for at least 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh,
The lavender
interesting.
that really heavy lavender, kind of soapy lavender smell really turns into this really interesting culinary cookie kind of flavor. So that one's really fun. We've done like Jamaican pimento wood, which was really fun. We've done Tabasco barrels, which was really cool. It was like you get in the smoke. If you get that smoke in your eyes just like water
I
instantly.
was
It's
I was
great.
gonna say you need to wear eye protection for something like that.
Yeah,
That's
you did.
like
Yeah, we didn't
mace, like it's
realize it would be.
airborne. Yeah,
Yeah, it was really interesting. So we've done that. We've done, we'll get barrels from distillers that or brewers that they've aged their beer or whiskey in, and then we'll get the staves, and then we'll smoke malt with those, and then they'll use that again. So it's really been fun. We've tried a lot of things. The things that I haven't liked so far, we've done sage and some of the herbs come across very like just uh, like smudge stick kind of incenty, and that those don't come across as well as I was hoping they would. But yeah, the woods I love. We do a lot of peat for. We do a lot of Indiana and Illinois peat. I've got some distillers here that do Indiana peated whiskey in Indiana, and I've got Thornton Distilling just on the south side of Chicago. They actually pretty much own my smoker nowadays. They do a lot of smoked of Illinois peat that we smoke into our Indiana barley, and they do a single malt whiskey with that. So we do a couple batches or 2 or 3 batches a week with those.
that's cool.
So yeah, it's been it's just been fun to experiment and see what we can the flavors we can come across. We've smoked malt with hops. We've done hop smoked malt before. That one was very dank, we'll say. It smelled a lot like it smelled a lot like you would expect it to smell like.
Like a high school party. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, all those, just experimenting and trying to see what actually works and what doesn't is fun. And having the brewers or distillers that will be experimental with me is also like just incredible to be able to have that, because I'm not going to make 500 pounds of something and then hope that it sells. So like, if somebody wants to do something, I'll say, yeah, we'll do it. But my minimum is 500 pounds. So if you guys want to do it, we'll do it, and we'll see how it turns out. And I've had a lot of really great conversations and collaborations with brewers and distillers working on the smoke malts for that.
sure, that makes sense. Um,
And then
yeah,
the sign house is that's a whole other beast. So like, doing the smokes there, that is the grain is completely dried after germination, just with the heat of the fire and the draft of the fire. So there's no electricity, there's no fans, there's no added heat. So it becomes a very, very, very intense smoke, and too intense for most people, to be honest. It's You can use it at less than 5% in the grain bill and still have a really smoky beer.
really. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very intense smoke. So we do all historical malts styles with those down in that building. So we do Stjordal, which is a gray alderwood smoked. It's a Norwegian style smoked malt. We do the Gotlandstricke, which is a Swedish smoked malt that we do with white birch. They do it both with alder and birch on the island of Gotland, but we wanted to kind of differentiate that from the Stjordal, so we do it with white birch. We do a Rauchmalt with beechwood, German Rauch malt. And then we do Grodziskie also with oak smoked red wheat. So we do all the historical malts in that building, and those are just they have such a unique character. I just had Sebastian from Freigeist was out at the malt house yesterday. Actually, we were
Oh,
going through those malts, um, and each one of them they're different, but they all have this very unique flavor and a very unique smoke that only comes from the sign house. Like it's just such a unique character. So those have been really fun to kind of recreate those flavors that would have been made 300 or 400 years ago, and try and see what smoked malt would have been like 300 or 400 years ago, before we had electricity and just added the smoke in during the drying process. Um, so yeah, it's having the cold smoker and the hot smoker in the sign house has been really fun to be able to really see the difference in modern smoking and the old world smoking.
I love it. Where do you want to put your creative efforts with smoked malt going forward?
Ooh, man. I honestly, I don't know if I can do anything else.
Okay.
Honestly, like we have the biggest list of smoke malts you can get anywhere in the world, both in the cold smoker and in the sign house. And we really have pushed as far as I can think of. If somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, I want to do this weird smoke malt with, some tropical herb or some tropical wood," I would definitely do it. But yeah, I mean, we have really pushed out as far as we can go. I'm still experimenting in the sign house to really kind of dial in, the smoke level, because, like I said, it's a very intense smoke, and people don't realize it going into it, and they'll be like, "Oh, we'll use it at 70%, 80% of the grist," and
Hmm.
and then they have the beer, and it's just this really, really, really smoky beer. And so trying to, I guess, uh, play around with that a little more, and kind of leveling out the smoke uh, intensity a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've really done some weird stuff already.
Well, keep it up. You're doing the Lord's work, and we all certainly appreciate it. And we're excited every time we get to have one of the beers made with your smoked malt. So keep up the good work. Thanks for doing what you're doing, and thanks for being on the show this week.
Yeah, thank you.
And now it's time for our Rauchbier personal essay. Longtime listener Rick Lyke is here to share his love of smoke and his journey to Rauchbier and beyond. He's an established writer, the founder of the Pints for Prostates campaign, and one of our social media Sherpas, always guiding us to the latest and greatest smoke in the land. So pour yourself a tall glass of Rauchbier and settle in as Rick shares his inspiring tale of smoke.
I'm beyond honored to be making my maiden appearance on the number one worldwide most listened to podcast in the history of smoke beer, This Week in Rauchbier. If I don't screw this up, my sincere hope is that John Hall will invite me back. So here goes. Rauchbier has been on my mind, if not always in my glass, since I first learned about the style from the late, great Michael Jackson's landmark 1977 book, The World Guide to Beer. I did not really know what to think. Smoke beer? Smoked beer? Smoky beer? How do you even say Rauchbier, 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 Rauchbier? What would it really taste like? Could something smoky be refreshing? Was there even a chance that I'd like Rauchbier? Well, it was love at first taste. My affection for Rauchbier has resulted in multiple visits to Bamberg. When I mention the Franconian city to people who tell me they are headed to Germany, I usually get a quizzical look. Even though it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, most people are headed to Munich or Cologne or Berlin. Some are cruising the Rhine, hiking the Alps, or castle hopping. Even beer friends tend to overlook the importance of Bamberg and the Franconian region. To me, that's like visiting Brussels and not stopping at Cantillon. Why would you even do that? On my very first visit to Bamberg 16 years ago, I got to meet Matthias Trum, the sixth generation of his family to run Heller Trum, makers of Schlenkler. Since then, I've had several other chances to sit with him at the Stammtisch and talk Rauchbier. Schlenkler is my clear favorite in Bamberg, but others in this wonderful city make smoked beer worth savoring. Special, Klosterbrau, Sternle, and even Weyermann, the famous malt producer, makes Rauchbier on its pilot brewing system. Once you taste smoke in your glass, the smoke might not get in your eyes, but it'll get into your mind and your heart. The hunt for smoked beer has become a passion of mine. And based on the many contributors to the This Week in Rauchbier group on Facebook, I'm not alone. I get to travel a decent amount, and one of the first things I do when I go to a new city is I take a look at the tap lists at local breweries to see if one might have a smoked beer. I've been pleasantly surprised to find more and more American craft brewers are adding smoked beers as seasonals, and some are even doing them as regular offerings. Last fall, I was in the Twin Cities, and on one Saturday, concocted what I've come to call the Great Minneapolis-St. Paul Ring of Smoke Brewery Tour. It consisted of 7 stops at breweries serving 8 different smoke beers. As you'd expect, there were smoky lagers, Helleses, porters, Martzens, but there were also a Grodzicki, a Lichtenheiner, and even a sweet potato smoked amber ale. I've even hit the quadruple crown of smoke beerdom twice on recent trips, finding 4 different smoke beers on draft at 2 different breweries, Live Oak in Austin and Dovetail in Chicago. I've had the chance to visit other craft breweries from Oxbow in Maine to Enegrin in California that serve up smoke beers regularly on draft, and they sell these beers in cans away from their tap rooms. For fans of smoke beer, this is a great time to be on planet Earth. At the same time, I do have some frustrations. I've encountered what I will call smoke phobia among a good number of brewers. Brewers who should know better. Let me cite 3 examples of these conditions. I'll keep the brewery names confidential to protect them from the wrath of Rauch fans. Example 1 is what I call smoke blindness. This has happened to me twice in the last few months. I hear about a smoke beer that sounds tasty and its release coincides with me being in that market. I visit the brewery only to find that it, quote, quickly sold out. The brewery staff sounds surprised. I tell them the devotion to smoke beer runs deep and mention the This Week in Rauchbier group. Now, they're really surprised, telling me that they only made a small batch because they did not think it would sell. When I asked when they plan to brew it again, one said same time next year, and the other said they had no plans to bring it back. It was a one-time release. Are brewers blind to the sales prowess that is Rauchbier? Example 2 is best described as smoke discrimination. This condition is found with brewers who regularly pump out IPAs that are 70 plus IBUs, cloying pastry stouts and sours with a dizzying array of fruit syrup adjuncts. When it comes to smoke, they back off the malt bill to a point where there is barely a whiff of smoke to be found in the flavor profile. One actually told me that they didn't think smoke beer was marketable. They released their beer on a day when a barbecue food truck was on premise and signs in the tap room announced the smoked beer. However, the packaged version made no mention of smoked malt being used in the brewing process. The slight hit of smoke in the finished beer would be a surprise to consumers, some of whom would likely think that there was a flaw in an otherwise well-built brew. Example 3 is what I call the smokeless German. In the last 10 years or so, a good number of lager first breweries have opened up around the U.S., most with Germanic-themed beer lists, food, and decor. The Helles, Pils, Kolsch, Alt, and Weiss flowing from these breweries is quite good. A number of them have taken home medals in European and international competitions, beating the best German brew houses. The issue is you are more likely to find them making styles like Gose, Berliner, Baltic Porter, Steinbier, and even IPA than you are to find them turning out a smoke beer. It's hard to comprehend. I don't want to be accused of being the beer mug is half empty kind of guy. So let me suggest we all do one thing to celebrate and promote Rauchbier this week. When you're out at your favorite brewery or beer bar, or making a stop at a bottle shop in your town, just matter-of-factly ask, what smoke beer do you have? You might get surprised and treated to a glass of the world's best beer style. Or you might get the chance to preach the gospel of Rauchbier. In either case, you'll contribute to making the beer world just a little bit more smoky.
As he does every week, Bart Watson, the chief economist of the Brewers Association, is here to count the smoke numbers and to give us the stats of Rauchbier growth, success, and sales. Bart, welcome back to the show. And I'm eager to hear how Rauchbier has done over the last week. But before you give us the cold smoke hard facts, I wanted to find out about some smoke that has recently touched your soul in a meaningful way.
Great question. First I'll say, too hard to find the smoke. I'm here in campfire
ridiculous.
country. Yeah, ridiculous. I'm here in campfire country in the Colorado mountains. You'd expect, people are thinking fire, they're thinking smoke. They want a good smoky beer. And the brewery I went to yesterday had 14, I counted them, 14 IPAs on tap and not a single smoke beer. So, I get it. IPA's growing. 10, 12 on tap, sure. 14 with no smoke beer, and maybe think about your offerings a little bit more. So that's my smoky bone to pick for the week.
So that must be the video that is making the rounds on social media right now that I've seen of you flipping a table and walking out screaming. Is that
Yeah, not the most professional comportment in my life, but sometimes you get frustrated when the customers are asking for it and the breweries aren't providing.
Rauchbier passion is real and it's powerful.
Yeah, totally.
But have you been able to find a Rauchbier anywhere that in your travels in your fridge, or is there one that you've been dreaming about
You
of
know,
late that you've had in the past?
there's one that I had, that I've been thinking about recently a lot. It's perfect for this time of year. It was a sour smoked beer from Primitive Brewing Company, one of my favorite breweries here in Colorado.
They're great. Yeah.
And I was thinking I need to seek that one out. They do a lot of great cherry beers, but this is one of the few they've done with smoke, and that smoke and the acidity just playing so well together. Just what a wonderful beer that was. So that's been in my brain a lot recently.
So go to Colorado for the IPAs, but then also to seek out all of the primitive beers. I got it. Um, there's also the Craft Brewers Conference coming up in a few weeks in Las Vegas, and that's a town that sets trends. It's a town that leads to bad decisions. But what's your read on the ground? Because I'm sure you've been doing a lot of prep work leading up to Vegas. What's your read on the ground for Rauch Beer's eventual takeoff and residency? I imagine Rauch Beer is ready for a casino residency at this point.
You would think so. I mean, Vegas is, as you said, a place known for bad decisions. A good decision by a lot of casinos would be to have a smoky offering. You've got people who are there gambling, drinking scotch already. So clearly, this is a flavor profile your clientele wants. But despite some of my best efforts, it has not moved its way into a comp at any casino that I am aware of. Hopefully, we'll just see enough people ordering it that the casinos will get the message after CBC. They'll see the demand that is there and see how that translates to the general public. Luckily Vegas as a beer town has come a long way. So I think there's going to be some, great beer bars out there that people can go to. I know Paul Gatz has been talking up the Silver Stamp. So, head there. Hopefully they'll have some Rauch beers on tap. And I think it's going to be, one of the things we always think about when we select CBC is how do we help this city or this place take its beer scene to the next level. I think smoke beer is going to play a real part of that in Las Vegas, in the post CBC period.
I love that. The Silver Stamp, by the way, is where M. Souter, our colleague on the All About Beer podcast, is doing a signing on April 22nd. She's going to have her pop-up shop, so people should go there. Do you have any other recommendations for Vegas, Rauch beer or not, for those? I haven't been in years.
We'll see. I think there are more beer bars in just about every part of the city. Getting off the strip, you're going to be able to see some of the great breweries that are there. I know the breweries too. For any listeners who are going to CBC or working on a discount code, I forget if it's Uber or Lyft, but one of the two that will allow you to get a discount on those rides to go out and see some of the local breweries. So I would certainly recommend you do that. And we'll see. We've been working with the Sphere to do some cool stuff. So maybe filling it with smoke, like a magic bauble, can be one of those things we look at.
Listen, if any organization can make that happen, it's the Brewers Association. So I'm excited about the prospect of looking out my hotel window and seeing Rauch beer related nonsense on the Sphere. Better than you two for sure.
Yeah.
Bart, I realize we're out of time for your segment this week. I'm sorry. In all of this fun conversation, we're not going to be able to get to the numbers, but so you'll just have to give us a double dose next week. Is that okay?
That sounds great. Double deep dive. I'll bring some, advanced statistics, and we'll really crunch the numbers hard for all of the huge overlap of people who like smoke beers and really like the data.
Thank you, Bart. I appreciate it, and good luck on your hunt for Rauch beer amid all of the IPA madness that exists. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks. Have a great week.
And that, my friends, is, well, that's the end of the show. for this week. Tell me about your favorite Rauchbier. You can email me. It's John Hall. It's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. Be sure to go visit allaboutbeer.com as well. A reminder, join the This Week in Rauchbier Facebook group. You can follow us on X and Instagram at TW Rauchbier. Merch is also available on our website at allaboutbeer.com/merch, and every order helps keep us on the air week after week. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, for your telegrams of support, and for your willingness to indulge on this first day of April 2024. And for now, stay safe, look out for one another, and drink that smoke if you got it. Good night.